AJ Mleczko and I thought now would be a fitting time to reflect on performances by the New York Islanders throughout the regular season.
And what a fun adventure that was. You look at how well this team has done this season and the differences between last year and this season, how many more goals they're scoring, the points as they look towards their playoffs starting next week. And it has been we've had a front row seat to watch this team thrive. And to start us off on these awards, we're going to talk, Bots, you and I are going to talk about the biggest keys to those turnarounds. We see the numbers. Who do you think is the most responsible for the turnaround?
Well, I think you and I are in agreement that it has to be Barry Trotz. You know, he's come in here and his impact has been incredible. I think his approach has been so effective. You know, he sort of had a contagious perspective where everyone's had a collective buy-in, and they've certainly had the defense-first mentality. And the way that Trotz has described it, he's sort of created this evolution of players to being solid two-way players, not just focused on one aspect of their game. And I think one of my favorite quotes from Trotz was that, you know, we don't have any passengers, right? And that was throughout the season, that they were all in. It wasn't one person that was carrying this team. And throughout the year, we've seen different players step up. And I think that's a reflection of the Trotz philosophy.
And for you and I sitting down there between the benches, we get to see it firsthand how he interacts with them. But I would go one step further and say that I give Lou Lamoriello a huge tip of the cap for bringing Barry Trotz in. He was really the architect of this team. He knows what Barry Trotz can do. He saw the opportunity there and he snapped him up from Washington.
He did. And you talk about other forms of great leadership. There was a new captain this season, but we both had a different take on our next award, who we thought was the team MVP for this season.
And there are so many players that stepped up at different times. Of course, we're at the 81st game of the season, but through 82 games, I give Casey Cizikas the MVP. The consistency that he played with, he scored 20 goals, but it isn't just his production. It's the way he played out there, the way he was so critical on the penalty kill. Here's a shorthanded goal, as an example. He was so good in the face-off dot, where the Islanders struggled throughout the season, but he led the team there, and the way he played. He was the glue that kept that fourth line together, and Barry Trotz, month in and month out, talked about how that fourth line was the identity of the team, and when they were playing together, the team did so well. So I give the MVP to Casey Cizikas.
Well, I do like your choice. No doubt that they have had a huge impact on this team. For me, my choice was Anders Lee, and I thought him coming up and being the captain, certainly huge change with Tavares leaving, but for him, he stepped in. There's no doubt he was an excellent choice. I think he's had poise, presence. He's sort of been that steady rock that this team needed. And even Trotz said, you know, this guy, he leads his life well, both, you know, on the ice and away from the rink. And I think he's just established and created a really strong belief in this team throughout the season. And for him, in terms of his points production as well, I mean, 28 goals, 51 points, leading the team in goals. I think for him, he's created, again, this strong belief and also this resiliency. I think the team responded really well throughout the season. I think that's a reflection of Lee and his strong leadership.
And of course, we're talking about two veterans there. Our next award is the top newcomer. And you and I talked about this. This is another one we're in agreement on. And Devon Toews has just not missed a beat. And when he joined the roster, his skating ability wowed you and I both right from the beginning. But I loved his poise. His opening game in December was in Dallas, and he had some injury troubles through the last couple of years. But when he broke into this roster, into this lineup, he did not look back. He was so impressive.
And there were great moments. He was defensively so strong. There's a look at a huge overtime winner in Chicago. And for him, he sort of, you know, came in and said, well, why not have a huge impact? And for him, like you said, he's been calm, smooth, and I think he's just been so smart. I mean, it's nice to watch him play the game, some of his skills at work there, another beautiful winning goal, but he's sort of unassuming the way that he came in, but has had solid with his total ice time, almost 18 minutes a game. And I think for him, it's just been, you know, why not be super? And I think he's really been a huge influence on this team, sort of that newcomer role. He's sort of thrived in that.
And he jumps in the play so much, which I really like, and Barry Trotz has given him that green light to lead the forecheck sometimes and jump in and take shots.
And I think he's been smart in the decisions on when to do so. So our next award, we talked about sort of that unsung hero, where some people get a little more attention. But AJ, who is your take on the top unsung hero?
I give it to
Islanders
Johnny Boychuk. He's not going to be in the lineup tonight, but he has been so incredible. And what I love about Johnny Boychuk is the heart that he brings to this team. And some of it is his locker room and the bench presence and the veteran leadership that he brings. but he goes all out. And I love when Barry Trotz says, you know, he gets it done ugly, but he gets it done. And he blocks shots, and it's not just blocking shots, it's the timeliness of when he blocks the shots. He's got a heavy shot from the point, and he's definitely not afraid to take it, and he's got a great sense of humor too.
He does, and when he was injured sort of recently, you know, I think the team did miss that sort of hard style of play that I think he brings a sort of a contagious energy to the team. And for me, I chose Cizikas, who you mentioned for the team MVP, but I thought for him, again, sort of that sometimes flies a little bit under the radar, but who's been so steady. And, you know, Cizikas and that entire fourth line with Clutterbuck and Martin, where they've started the majority of every period throughout the regular season and brought sort of the idea of the right way to play, and playing fast, but being smart, being physical. And that was something the entire team, I felt, fed off of throughout every game that they played. So I thought for him, he deserved a little more credit than perhaps he received. But we move on, and we thought about key moments or key games that the Islanders had. They had some great moments. They were resilient and responded really well. AJ, what was your take on some of the key moments from the season?
My favorite game, and I was there, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but was February 28th. It was at the Coliseum. It was the return of former captain John Tavares, and it was such an electric energy in there, and the response from the Islanders was incredible. They go down a goal and then 6 unanswered goals, 6 different scorers. So at that point in the season, they're fighting to get into the playoffs. They knew they had been doing well. They had been at the top of the Metro, but they had a long fight ahead of them, and they fed off that energy. It was such an emotional win. It was a statement win. There was a little bit of a dip the couple games after that because I think they were so emotionally spent from that game. But I think it was something, you know, you go back to the end of December when they beat Toronto 4-0, and those 2 games I think showed that team that they were all in it together, and they have a lot of weapons.
Mm-hmm. And that was one, I think, for me, I remember very clear, that one in Toronto where it was 4-0 for the Islanders. And so they were strong from the beginning. But there were 2 other moments that I thought were very significant for this team rallying together and having strong performances that carried forward for the next few months. And one of them was this hit on Lee December 8th in Detroit. And the Islanders were down 2-0 at that point, but his teammates stepped in immediately. Bailey and Larkin fought right away, so Bailey stepped in, Boychuk and Abdelkader, and this team was going to respond. They were not happy at all with that hit, and they came back. The Islanders had 3 unanswered goals, Martin with the game winner. And all of their comments after the game was they were determined to win that one for their captain, Anders Lee. Another huge moment I thought was the performance of Robin Lehner in Buffalo at the end of December. Lehner made 39 saves returning to Buffalo. And for him, this was an emotional game. And speaking to him before the game and afterwards, this meant a lot to him that Buffalo had let him go. And him coming back of some tough times for him in the offseason personally, and to come back and have such a strong performance, I think sort of ignited him. You see his emotion after the game and the rest of the team that's so thrilled for him, how he's come together and brought his life together and been so solid for this team on the stretch after that.
Well, it's amazing that we just did a whole segment and neither of us mentioned the goalies because they have been so critical, and both Thomas Greiss and Robin Lehner were so good for this team. And Robin Lehner, what he's come back from and the emotion that he showed out there in his play and in his post-game comments was really tremendous for this team.